You were not born to spend your life struggling in confusion, pain, and fear. Your natural state is happiness. Not the noisy, temporary excitement that comes and goes, but a deep, calm joy that does not break every time life changes. So why does life hurt so much? Why do we lose people we love, watch friendships turn into hostility, see our health fail or our finances collapse, often without any warning or clear reason? It is not because life is cruel. It is because we are trying to cross a dark room full of obstacles with the lights off. We are being pushed forward by the great power of evolution, forced to grow, forced to learn, but we do it mostly in ignorance of the laws that govern our journey. So we bump into everything. Spiritual wisdom is like turning the light on. The room is the same, the furniture is the same, but you can suddenly see. You still have to walk, but you walk with far less pain and far more confidence. Before we go deeper, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. In this video, we'll explore why suffering appears in your life and what it is secretly trying to teach you. The three inner powers you must develop: desire, will, and intelligence. How to transform destructive habits and desires using simple mental techniques. How to train your mind through attention, imagination, and meditation. And why real spiritual growth cannot be bought or forced, and how true guidance actually reaches you. If you care about inner growth and want practical, deep guidance, subscribing will make sure you don't miss any of the upcoming videos that build on this one. Why life hurts. The missing light of spiritual understanding. Look at your own experience. One day, your family circle is whole. Soon after, someone you love is gone, and the house feels emptied of joy. One season, you are surrounded by friends. A few months later, someone you trusted becomes cold or hostile, and you don't even know why. There are times when you feel secure in your job or finances, and then suddenly you are thrown into uncertainty, debt, or loss. Most people live as if these shocks were pure accidents. They feel attacked by fate, and because they don't understand the inner laws of life, they experience each event as meaningless punishment. In truth, nothing important in your life is meaningless. But without knowledge of the hidden side of existence, your suffering looks like chaos. Imagine again that long, dark room full of chairs and tables scattered everywhere. You must cross it. In the dark, you move slowly, painfully. You bruise yourself on every corner and stumble again and again. Now imagine that someone flips a switch. The light fills the room. The furniture is still there, but now you can walk between it easily. Spiritual illumination is that light. It doesn't erase the challenges of life, but it shows you why they are there, how to move through them, and how to turn them into power and wisdom instead of wounds and bitterness. Beyond information, awakening the greater self. Traditional education trains us to collect facts, pass exams, and polish our outer personality. It assumes that the person you see in the mirror, the body, and the everyday mind is the whole of who you are. At best, this kind of education turns you into a well-informed personality, but it does not show you how to handle suffering or how to unfold your deeper potential. A deeper view of life says something very different. Your physical body is only a vehicle, a tool. The real you, the thinking, feeling, enduring self, is something far greater. Within that deeper self, there is far more power, wisdom, and love than you now express. The problem is not that you lack a soul or higher nature.
The problem is that your current instruments, your body, your nervous system, your brain, your emotional habits, are not yet sensitive enough to let that higher nature shine fully through. Self-development means consciously improving these instruments, refining your body, disciplining your emotions, sharpening your mind, and purifying your motives. As you do this, more of your deeper self can flow into daily life. That flow of inner light is what we call spiritual illumination. It is not a fantasy. It is an expansion of consciousness, as real as learning to see color after a lifetime of seeing only gray.
The hidden laws behind death, enemies, poverty, and disease. Let's look directly at 4 of life's hardest experiences: death, enemies, poverty, and illness. Why does death hurt so much? Mostly because it seems to separate you from those you love, and because you do not understand what death really is. If you believe that a person simply stops at death, of course it is terrifying. But when inner perception awakens, you discover that consciousness continues beyond the loss of the physical body. Death is not annihilation, but a change of vehicle. The grief that once overwhelmed you is softened, and fear begins to give way to understanding and peace. Why do you have enemies? On the surface, an enemy looks like someone who, for no reason, decided to harm you. But deeper law says this: all life is one, and every thought and action you send out must return to you in some form. When you think or act with hatred, dishonesty, or cruelty, you are throwing a boomerang. It may come back through a different person, in a different situation, but it must return. Often, it returns in the form of someone who opposes you or hurts you. This is not punishment from an angry universe. It is simply how a moral law works. The only way out is to stop creating such causes, to stop thinking evil, stop wishing harm, stop feeding bitterness. Then patiently live out the remaining reactions of your past. Once the old accounts are settled, the chain of enemies comes to an end. Why do poverty and disease appear? They are not random cruelties either. They usually arise from ignorance of natural laws, physical, mental, or spiritual, or from past causes that need to work themselves out. They also bring vital lessons: endurance, courage, humility, compassion, self-control, a wiser use of energy and resources. When you finally learn what they are trying to teach, that particular form of suffering no longer needs to stay in your life. It disappears like a teacher who leaves the classroom once the students truly understand the lesson. All forms of suffering, small and great, are like this. They are both the reaction to what you have previously thought and done, and the instruction that shows you how to live better. When you learn the lesson, the problem either disappears or ceases to feel like an enemy.
The next step in human evolution: awakening a new sense. So far in our long journey as a race, we have developed 5 main senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. These are the tools through which we interact with the physical world. But there is no good reason to assume that evolution stops here. The next great step is the awakening of a new kind of perception, something like a 6th sense. You can call it inner vision, higher awareness, or clairvoyance. A small number of people already have this to some degree. Some see only the subtlest borderlands of the physical world, very fine forms of matter just beyond normal vision. Others, more trained and developed, can raise their consciousness much further, into levels of reality and law that ordinary senses can never reach. To understand how this could be natural, imagine a person born completely blind, who has never even heard of sight. He learns about a building's shape by slowly passing his hands over it, step by step.
Now imagine a sighted person standing across the street, instantly counting every window just by glancing at the building. To the blind man, it would seem like magic. But for the sighted person, this is simply normal perception. Inner vision is like that. Where the physical eye can no longer reach, a higher sense can sometimes perceive. It does so not through physical light, but by responding to subtler vibrations of matter that pass freely through what we call solid objects. This is not a violation of nature. It is a more extended use of nature's laws. Whether you care about inner senses or not, the deeper point is this: you are still evolving. Much more awaits you than your present abilities show.
2 paths of evolution: drift or decide. Every human being is moving along the great road of evolution from spiritual infancy toward greater wisdom, compassion, and power. But there are 2 very different ways to travel that road. The first is unconscious evolution. You drift. You don't ask deep questions. You react to life, but do not study it. Nature still pushes you forward, but she does it with what feels like whip and spur. Pain, loss, fear, and disappointment drive you along whether you like it or not. You move, but slowly, and usually through many unnecessary hurts. The second is conscious evolution. You decide to understand the laws by which life operates. You cooperate with them. You watch the effects of your thoughts and actions and adjust. You make deliberate efforts to grow, to refine your character, to serve more wisely. On this path, progress becomes much faster and far more meaningful. You still experience challenges, but they become training rather than torment. Meanwhile, everything around you, including your body, is in constant change. No part of you remains exactly the same from one day to the next. Cells die and are replaced. Thoughts and emotions appear and vanish. Your soul itself, the inner being, expands or contracts according to how you live. It can shine powerfully through your body, making you a force of clarity and kindness in the world. Or it can be almost smothered by coarseness, laziness, and selfishness, until it only faintly glows through a heavy, insensitive body and a confused mind. You cannot stop this constant movement, but you can decide whether you will move blindly, pushed behind by pain, or consciously, drawn forward by understanding and choice.
Nature's law of growth. Use it or lose it. There is a universal law that applies to your muscles, your mind, and your soul. Whatever you refuse to use, you begin to lose. Whatever you exercise, you strengthen and develop. Physically, this is obvious. If you strap your arm to your body and never move it, the muscles weaken, then shrink. Eventually, the arm becomes almost useless. Nature does not keep energy and strength where they are not used. On the other hand, if you regularly exercise that arm, lifting, stretching, working with it, it becomes strong and capable. The same rule holds for your mental and moral faculties. If you never challenge your mind to think for itself, if you always accept others' opinions, always distract yourself, never reflect deeply, your thinking power stays weak and shallow. If you rarely practice patience, kindness, courage, or self-control, those capacities atrophy. Nature even gives us extreme examples in the plant and animal kingdoms. Some parasite plants originally had healthy roots like other plants, but over time, they developed the habit of sucking everything they needed from their hosts. Once they stopped using their own roots, those roots shriveled and disappeared. Certain crabs once had strong shells and plenty of legs, but instead of living the hard, active life of their relatives, they found an easier way: They hid themselves inside abandoned shells of other creatures and let those shells protect them. Over many generations, their unused legs shortened and vanished, and the natural armor over their bodies became thin and fragile. To escape effort, they did not gain safety. They became weak and helpless. When you refuse responsibility, refuse effort, and constantly look for the easiest way, you're doing the same thing with your character. There may be a short-term feeling of comfort, but in the long run, it always costs you more. Laziness, apathy, and inaction are not neutral. They are a slow form of degeneration. On the other hand, aspiration and activity, reaching up and reaching out, create growth. Every time you stretch beyond your comfort zone in a healthy way, you add a little more strength to your inner being.
Life as a spiritual gymnasium. Once you really understand this law of use and growth, life begins to look different. The world stops being a random place of needless trouble and starts to look like a training ground. You grow physically by exercising your body. You grow mentally by wrestling with ideas and problems. You grow emotionally and morally by living through experiences that test and stretch you. Life supplies those experiences. You learn courage by meeting danger or fear and acting wisely anyway. You learn optimism by facing disappointment and choosing not to sink into bitterness. You learn patience by enduring delay and failure without giving up. You learn tolerance when others block your ambitions or oppose you, and you are forced to see beyond your own point of view. You learn humility when your pride is broken by unexpected falls. You learn compassion when your heart has been broken and you know from within what pain feels like. Only in a world that challenges you this way can your latent powers unfold. A life of unbroken comfort would leave most of your higher abilities asleep. And there is no escaping this training. Even suicide does not end your need to grow. You can leave one classroom, but you will eventually find yourself in another, needing to learn the very lessons you tried to run away from. You cannot choose whether you will grow. You can only choose how. You may drift as a confused sufferer, or awaken as a conscious student of life.
All powers are latent in you, but you must do the work. No matter how great a soul you admire, saints, sages, geniuses, none of their powers are exclusive to them. Every capacity they display is, in seed form, present to you. There is no height any human has reached that is in principle unreachable for any other. But there is no magic formula that turns an ignorant, selfish person into a wise and radiant being overnight. Growth takes time. It may take many lifetimes, and yet once you deliberately choose to cooperate with the laws of growth, your progress can be surprisingly swift compared to the long ages of drifting that came before. Still, there is a strict condition. This transformation must be your work. No one can do it for you. Others can encourage, teach, guide, and inspire, but they cannot live your life, fight your battles, or practice your virtues. You cannot become physically strong by watching athletes perform. You must move your own muscles. Likewise, you cannot become morally or spiritually strong by merely reading about goodness or admiring it in others. You must live it, in small ways and large. So the first decision is this: to take yourself firmly in hand for definite and systematic self-development. To stop waiting for life to fix you, and instead begin shaping yourself from within. Seeing your body as an instrument, not as you. Your first practical step is a simple but powerful shift in identity. You must feel, not just say, that your body is not the real you. It is your tool. Think of your hand. You use it, but you are not your hand. If you lost a hand, you would still be you.
The same is true of your body as a whole. It is an instrument you have temporarily taken up to act in this physical world. When you really grasp this, you stop being so completely ruled by bodily comfort and discomfort. Instead of thinking, I am tired, I am hungry, I am in pain, you begin to notice, my body is tired, my body is hungry, my body is in pain. That small gap gives you room to decide how to act instead of reacting blindly. This sense of using the body instead of being dragged by it is the foundation of conscious evolution. Until you gain it, you cannot fully develop the inner discipline needed for deeper work.
The 3 essential qualities: desire, will, intelligence. For serious self-development, 3 inner qualities are absolutely necessary. If you lack any of them, you can and must grow them. They are: 1. An ardent desire for growth and higher life. 2. A firm, disciplined will to carry decisions into action. 3. A keen, alert intelligence that can understand and apply truth. Desire is your engine. Will is your steering wheel and brakes. Intelligence is your map and headlights. Without strong desire, you will drift. Without strong will, your desires will never become reality. Without clear intelligence, your desires and will may send you down the wrong road. Let's look at each of these 3 in depth.
Desire is the engine that moves worlds. Desire is nature's driving power. It is what makes plants reach for light, animals hunt and mate, and humans build cities, write books, and explore space. It is not a mistake in you. It is the force by which life moves forward. In animals, desire for food pushes them to explore and hunt. Desire for safety makes them flee or fight. Desire for companionship draws them together. These desires force them into activity that develops stronger bodies, sharper senses, and more accurate instincts. Without those desires, most species would vanish. In human life, desire works the same way at a higher level. You may begin your career simply wanting a stable income. Once that is reached, you want a better home, more comfort, more recognition. You may crave more knowledge, more power, more influence. When you reach one level, another calls to you. Consider the example of a young person entering work life. At first, they are content with a small salary and a modest home. Later, they dream of a larger house, then perhaps a luxury home in multiple locations. They may start with a simple bike, then want a car, then an expensive car, then a yacht. Each new possession, once gained, quickly becomes normal and loses its flavor. Something more is always needed. On the surface, this looks like a cruel joke. But what is really happening while you chase these outer goals, you develop inner capacity. The ability to plan and organize, the strength to persist through obstacles, the skill to work with other people, the courage to take risks, the creativity to solve problems. These inner powers are the real rewards of your efforts. The house, the money, the social status, they may stay with you for a few years and then pass on to others. But the powers you developed remain part of your character. In deeper perspective, they go with you into future experiences, even beyond this single life. So, desire, even when it seems selfish or material, is secretly being used by life to carve strength and skill into your soul. The hidden gift of never being fully satisfied. You may have noticed that whenever you reach a goal you once thought it would completely satisfy you, it doesn't. You enjoy it for a while, and then a new hunger appears. Life keeps pulling the horizon further away. This can feel frustrating, But this very restlessness is one of the greatest gifts you have. If you could be completely satisfied with a small amount of comfort and pleasure, you would probably stop growing. You would never stretch. You would never look beyond your own small circle. Instead, life lets you taste the temporary satisfaction of each achieved desire, and then quietly shows you its emptiness. Little by little, you discover that external things cannot fully satisfy an internal hunger. They are pleasant, but they do not reach the depth of your being. Out of this realization arises a new kind of desire, the desire for inner freedom, for peace that does not depend on possessions, for understanding that does not collapse under change. When that higher desire awakens, your whole life begins to shift. You start to use external experiences as tools for inner growth, instead of chasing them as ends in themselves.
Should you really kill out desire? Spiritual teachings sometimes say, kill out desire, or resist not evil. Taken literally by the average person, such ideas can be confusing or even harmful. Desire, as we've seen, is your motor. Completely killing it would leave you in a motionless, dangerous state where no growth is possible. What you actually need is not a violent killing of desire, but a transformation of it. Lower desires must gradually be replaced by higher ones. You move from selfish cravings toward unselfish motives, from gross pleasures toward finer joys. Think of a young man addicted to gambling. Why does he gamble? Because he desires money, excitement, and a sense of intense, vivid life. Those desires themselves are not entirely wrong. They are just looking in the wrong direction. His parents might try to stop him by scolding him, by calling gambling a sin, and by begging him to spend time only with proper people, people whose lives seem to him dull and lifeless. Their lectures fail because they try to crush his desires instead of redirecting them. A wiser approach would be to say, you obviously love challenge, risk, and intense activity. You want to live in a fast-moving world where big outcomes are at stake. Those are real needs in you. Instead of throwing them into gambling, you could pour them into something that is both exciting and useful, like entering a demanding career or even politics, where you will still live at high speed, face uncertain outcomes, and handle big stakes, but also build something real. Over time, once that lower outlet is replaced by a higher one, the original harmful form of desire loses its grip. You have not killed desire, you have elevated it. Certain very gross desires, cruelty, vicious indulgence, destructive addiction, do have to be left behind as directly as possible. But even then, the safest way is usually replacement, not sudden suppression. Replacing crude pleasure with finer satisfaction, selfish impulse with genuine interest in others, blind craving with understanding.
Escaping destructive desires, a practical method. When you feel trapped by a destructive habit, like alcoholism, drug use, compulsive lying, or any repeated behavior that drags your life and dignity down, it often feels as if some inner force controls you. You may wake up after a period of indulgence filled with shame and sincerely promise yourself, never again. Then, when the next wave of temptation comes, the promise seems to vanish. Why? A common mistake is to avoid thinking about the problem. The moment the pain passes, you push it out of your mind because it is embarrassing and unpleasant. You live in a kind of hopeful fog, trusting that next time you will somehow be stronger, without doing anything to become stronger. A more powerful approach is this: calmly and regularly face the truth of what the habit is doing to you. Once a day, in a quiet moment, deliberately bring the issue to mind. Do not excuse it, do not exaggerate it, just see it clearly. Use your imagination to picture your future if you do not break free. See yourself older, weaker, perhaps alone. Imagine the damage to your health, a shaking body, a clouded mind. See the financial cost, the broken trust of family and friends, the opportunities lost. Let yourself feel a gentle but real distaste for this future and for the habit that leads to it. Do not whip yourself with hatred. Hatred is just another form of attachment that ties you to the very thing you hate. Instead, aim for a cool, clear rejection, a sense that this habit is something you are simply done with, something beneath what you now want to be. Doing this daily, even for a few minutes, begins to dissolve the emotional glue that keeps the habit in place. Little by little, the desire itself loses color and strength. One day you realize that what once felt irresistible now feels strangely uninteresting. This method applies to any desire you sincerely wish to drop. Honest, repeated, non-dramatic contemplation of the truth, plus a mild inward repulsion, will loosen even old chains.
Creating a burning desire for spiritual growth. Just as you can weaken an old desire, you can build a new one. If your longing for spiritual growth feels faint or theoretical, you can strengthen it deliberately. Again, your imagination is all. Set aside time to picture clearly what inner growth would really mean for you. Imagine being able to see the deeper causes behind people's behavior, including your own, so you respond with wisdom instead of automatic reaction. Imagine having an inner calm that doesn't shatter every time circumstances change. Imagine feeling a living connection with those you call dead, recognizing that consciousness continues beyond the loss of the body. Imagine being able, in ways seen or unseen, to help others when they are in deep need, to become, in a quiet sense, an invisible helper who brings comfort, strength, or guidance. Let these images be vivid. Feel the joy, the freedom, the expanded usefulness that would come from such development. As you dwell on these possibilities day after day, your desire to grow spiritually becomes sharper and more real. It changes from a vague interest into a genuine hunger. If such high ideals feel too distant at first, you can begin with more personal motives. The wish to overcome your fears, the wish to be less at the mercy of mood and anxiety, the wish to know for yourself that your life has a larger purpose. Even these motives, if pursued honestly, can lead you upward. Over time, your reasons will naturally purify. You will find that the deepest satisfaction lies not in power itself, but in using whatever power you gain to serve and uplift others. Always remember, if you seek spiritual powers mainly to impress people, control them, or take advantage of them, you are walking toward disaster. The safest and surest path is to want internal growth primarily so you can be a clearer channel for help, truth, and love.
The Iron Will, from slave of comfort to master of action. Desire gives you the energy to move, but only will can harness that energy and turn it into consistent action. Even in ordinary life, nothing great is achieved without a strong will. Businesses are built, discoveries are made, and art is mastered by people who can keep going when it is hard, boring, or frightening. Inner development is even more demanding. You are not just learning a technique, you are reshaping your entire character. Without a firm will, you may begin enthusiastically, but soon fall back into old habits. Many people overestimate their own willpower. In a quiet moment, they say with perfect sincerity, "I would do anything for true spiritual growth." But the real test is not how you feel when you make that declaration. It is what you do when the alarm rings early, when you are tempted to break your own rules, when the practice feels dull or inconvenient. A simple example reveals much. Imagine you decide, tomorrow I will get up at 6 o'clock to meditate or study. You think it through, you agree with yourself, you go to bed with that clear decision. Then at 6, you wake up, feel the warmth of the bed, the heaviness of your body, the comfort of staying where you are. Suddenly, perhaps I was too strict, or just this once I'll sleep longer, begins to sound very reasonable. If you repeatedly change your plan at the moment of carrying it out, who is ruling your life? Your fleeting physical comfort. Your body says, stay, and your so-called will says, yes, sir. This is clear evidence that your will is still weak. Again, this is not a cause for shame. It is information. Once you know your will is weak, you can begin to train it. If you refuse to train it, life itself eventually will, through circumstances that force you to do hard things simply to survive. Better to start willingly than to be pushed. How desire and will work together in daily life. Notice how, even without any spiritual intention, desire and will be at work in ordinary pursuits. A person desires wealth. That desire drives them into business or career. They encounter obstacles, competition, setbacks. To overcome these, they must use and strengthen their will, focusing their efforts, overcoming laziness, facing fear, making sacrifices. Over years, this process forges real powers in them: organizing ability, persistence, courage, leadership. Another person desires education. Perhaps they come from poverty. Still, their hunger for knowledge is so strong that they rise early, study late, work jobs to pay tuition, and fight through exhaustion. Here again, desire awakens will, and will builds strength. Even a person at a very simple stage of evolution, who desires nothing higher than basic food and shelter, is forced by that desire to move, to work, to overcome physical inertia. They may not be building great intellectual or moral strength yet, but even they are slowly awakening willpower through necessity. This is unconscious training. The difference on the path of conscious evolution is that you choose your desires and direct your will for growth itself, not just for outer results. You are no longer forced by hunger or fear. You are drawn by purpose. That is a far more noble and efficient way to evolve.
Training your will. Small promises, exact obedience. Willpower, like muscle, grows by repeated use. The trick is to start with weights you can actually lift. Here's a simple method. 1. Decide in advance on a small, clear action that is slightly unpleasant but unquestionably beneficial. 2. Choose a specific time when you will do it. 3. When that time arrives, do it immediately, without postponement or bargaining. For example, you might decide, at 7:30 this evening, I will spend 10 minutes reviewing my day and noting where I lost patience. Or, tomorrow at 6:15, I will get out of bed and sit up to meditate for 5 minutes, no matter how I feel. Once the decision is made, you treat it as final. You do not, at 7:29 or 6:14, reopen the discussion. Each time you follow through, you slightly strengthen the link between internal decision and external action. Every time you break it, you slightly weaken that link. Over time, as your will strengthens, you can choose more demanding actions. But even simple commitments kept faithfully build the habit of doing what your deeper self has decided rather than what your comfort-craving body or anxious mind prefers in the moment.
Many people live half asleep inside their own bodies, dragged by habit and mood. They are, in a sense, dead while walking around. By training your will this way, you begin to wake up. You become someone who can say, "I will do this," and then actually do it. You will also discover that states of dullness or mental fog can often be broken by a direct act of will. A speaker, an actor, or a teacher might arrive exhausted in front of an audience. At first they feel blank, heavy, empty. But if they deliberately rouse themselves, straighten the body, focus the mind, call up their energy, they can often move from near stupor to full engagement in a few minutes. What changed? Not their deepest self, it was never tired. What changed was the level of activity in their physical and nervous system, which can be stimulated by strong intention. Of course, you must never abuse your body or drive it past its healthy limits. But you can and should refuse to do your important work in a half-dead, dragging state when a firm inner call can wake you up.
Attention and concentration, turning your mind into a searchlight. Attention is the way your consciousness connects to the world. When you pay attention, you direct a beam of awareness onto something, a person, a problem, a book, an inner feeling. When that beam is weak, unsteady, or constantly shifting, nothing sinks in deeply. Look at how many people listen without really hearing. They drift in and out of conversations, miss key points, and misunderstand simple statements. When they try to explain something, they wander in circles, pulled away by side thoughts and memories. This is not because they are stupid. It is because their attention is untrained. If you want to grow forward, you must learn to place your attention where you choose and keep it there until you decide to move it. Whether you are listening to someone speak, reading a serious book, doing a practical task, or thinking through a decision, aim to give that one thing your full mind. Of course, thoughts will still wander. The work is in gently but firmly bringing them back again and again. There is a big difference between weak attention and real concentration. Imagine holding a magnifying glass between the sun and a piece of paper. If the light is spread in a wide circle, the paper warms a little but never burns. If you bring the light to a sharp point, the paper begins to smoke and finally catches fire. Your mind works the same way. Scattered, it warms ideas slightly, but hardly changes anything. Focused, it can penetrate to the heart of a problem, understand subtle truths, and generate powerful clarity. Train yourself to treat your attention as a searchlight. When you choose a topic, say the quality of patience or the meaning of a life event, turn that searchlight onto it and hold it there. Let the light move over every detail, every angle. Resist the urge to let it drift uselessly over random scenery. With practice, this focused attention becomes one of your most valuable spiritual tools.
Keen intelligence. Why good motives are not enough. Many people believe that if their motives are good, everything will work out well. "I meant well" is often used as a full excuse. On the inner path, good motives are absolutely necessary. They protect you from certain dangers, but they are not enough. Imagine two people crossing rocky ground in the dark. One is going to commit a crime. His motive is bad, but he knows the ground perfectly, every stone, every ditch. He walks safely. The second is going to help a sick neighbor. His motive is beautiful, but he does not know the terrain at all. He may easily fall, twist an ankle, or break a leg. Nature does not suspend the law of gravity out of respect for his kindness. In the same way, spiritual laws do not change simply because you mean well. If you ignore how thoughts affect emotions, how emotions affect health, how certain practices affect your nerves or brain, you can hurt yourself even with sincere intentions. This is why clear intelligence and sound judgment are essential. You must learn, think, observe, and understand. You must combine love and wisdom, devotion and clarity. One without the other is incomplete. Growing your intelligence through thought, observation, and imagination. How do you develop this kind of intelligence? First, by thinking for yourself. Choose a regular time each day. Even 15 minutes is enough to think seriously. You may use a thoughtful book as a starting point, but do not read it in a lazy way. Don't swallow everything it says. Instead, treat each statement as a juror treats evidence in a trial. Listen to it. Turn it over in your mind. Ask, does this fit with what I already know? Is it reasonable? Could it be partly true but incomplete? What would be the consequences if it were true? Spend more time reflecting than reading. You might read a single paragraph and then close the book to think deeply about it. This trains your mind to be active rather than passive. Studying great spiritual questions, the nature of consciousness, the purpose of suffering, the laws of cause and effect, is especially nourishing for this kind of thinking. Second, sharpen your intelligence by observing life. Start paying close attention to people, how they speak, how they move, what expressions cross their faces when different topics arise. Ask yourself, silently, what they might be feeling, what they might be afraid of, what they might want. Do this not to judge them, but to understand them. This close observation does two things at once. It refines your perception, and it increases your compassion. You stop seeing people as simple labels and begin to see them as complex souls, struggling just as you are. Third, strengthen your imagination. This is not about daydreaming without control. It is about practicing the ability to form clear, stable inner images. Call to mind, for example, the face of a friend. See the color of their eyes, the way they smile, the little lines of expression. Or recreate in your mind your childhood home, the shape of the rooms, the view from the window, the path to the door, the way light fell at different times of the day. This ability to see forwardly is very important. Many finer perceptions first arise as delicate impressions in the field of imagination. If that field is foggy, the impressions get lost. If it is clear and steady, it can receive deeper insights and intuitions. Meditation. How to rebuild your inner instruments. While you are strengthening desire, will, and intelligence, there is one practice that works on all three at once and accelerates your development. Meditation. Meditation is not just sitting quietly. When done earnestly and regularly, it gradually transforms the very substance of your inner and outer vehicles, your thoughts, emotions, and even your nervous system. They become more organized, more sensitive to higher influences, more responsive to your deeper self. Purity and sensitivity always go together. As you clean up your life, your habits, your motives, your inner talk, your whole system becomes capable of finer vibration. Meditation is one of the main ways to do this. For most people used to the noise and speed of modern life, the hardest part of meditation is controlling the mind. Thoughts run like wild animals. That's why conditions matter. First, a place where you could not be interrupted is essential. If you can, choose the same time each day. Regularity builds a rhythm in your nature that supports the practice. Second,
The early morning is usually the best time, before the world's noise floods in. Third, sit comfortably and calmly for about 5 minutes. Choose one uplifting quality, patience, courage, compassion, inner peace, or any other virtue you want to grow. For about 5 minutes, gently keep your mind on that one idea. Think about what it means. Picture yourself acting with that quality in real situations, how you would speak, how you would feel, how you would respond under pressure. Each time your mind wanders, and it will, bring it back without irritation. Two powerful things are happening here. One, you are training your mind to obey you, to stay where you place it. This builds mental strength and stability. Two, you are attracting and shaping subtle inner material around that quality, weaving it into your character. Over time, patience, courage, or compassion becomes easier and more natural for you. It starts as a practice in meditation and gradually becomes your spontaneous way of being. Any virtue you truly desire can be grown this way. Meditation plus sincere effort to live according to the ideal you contemplate.
Real transformation takes time, but it is certain. Some people talk as if you can change everything about yourself instantly by simply realizing that all power is within you. There is a grain of truth here. You must recognize that the source of your strength is inside, not outside. But recognition is only the first step. A seed contains the form of the full-grown tree, but it still needs time, soil, water, sun, and seasons to unfold. Your deeper self contains astonishing potential, but your current body, brain, and emotional nature must be educated and remolded to express it. Right now, your physical brain is not yet delicate enough to register all the finest impulses from your inner self. Your nervous system may still be too coarse or too easily exhausted. Changing this is a serious evolutionary task, not a weekend project. But every sincere effort you make, every meditation, every act of self-control, every honest attempt to understand and serve moves you forward. Nothing is lost. There are rare cases where people seem to achieve spiritual illumination in a short period. They become vividly conscious of inner worlds while awake, understand the deeper causes behind events, and gain a level of insight that seems far beyond their years of practice. Usually this happens because they have spent many lifetimes working toward this point. In this life, they only had a small distance left to go. A single strong effort, perhaps deep study, a powerful decision, or a commitment to a spiritual path, was enough to complete the bridge. You cannot always know where you stand in this long story, nor do you need to. If you would only begin the work if it was quick and easy, that very attitude shows you are not ready for the higher stages. But you are ready to begin where you are, to make honest efforts, and to let time and law do their work. Even if many years pass without any dramatic experiences, the inner building is still going on. The sooner you start, the sooner unnecessary suffering will fall away.
Beware of artificial shortcuts and paid miracles. Because people are impatient, shortcuts are always popular, especially in spiritual matters. You will hear of techniques that promise instant clairvoyance, quick awakening, or guaranteed visions, staring into crystals, forcing certain breathing patterns, or other tricks that shock the nervous system into unusual states. Some of these methods can indeed produce temporary psychological effects, but they do so by straining and disturbing delicate parts of your interior and physical machinery. The result can be nervous breakdowns, mental imbalance, or even lasting damage. Many people have paid dearly for chasing spectacular experiences instead of building solid characters. You will also meet those who, for a fee,
offer to teach you clairvoyance or sell you secret powers as if they were a language course or a gym membership. But real spiritual powers are not for sale. They are not commodities. They are the results of inner growth, moral purity, and long discipline. Genuine spiritual instruction does exist, but its price is not money. It is sincerity, love of truth, self-control, willingness to serve others. Until you stand on that foundation, you are safer without dramatic powers. With selfish motives and weak character, such powers would only magnify your problems and temptations. Real wisdom always puts being before doing, and character before phenomena. How true teachers work with you, often without your knowing. At some point, you may ask, if there are wiser beings who guide human evolution, how do I find my teacher? The answer may surprise you. In the beginning, you do not find them, they find you. From your current viewpoint, your waking consciousness is narrowing. You remember only a fragment of your total existence. When your physical body sleeps, your deeper self is not unconscious in the same way. It can be active on subtler levels of reality, learning, exploring, and meeting others. According to ancient teaching, this is often when real instruction begins. Long before you are ready to remember such experiences, you may already be receiving guidance during sleep. Your waking brain is not yet sensitive enough to bring those memories back, so you think you simply slept. But on inner levels, something more has been happening. How are students selected for such help? Not by money, social position, or cleverness. They are recognized by their earnestness and persistence, their unselfishness and compassion, their devotion to truth, their genuine spiritual aspiration. There is an old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. This does not necessarily mean that a dramatic guru will walk into your life wearing special clothes. It means that as soon as you reach a certain inner readiness, you are taken in hand, quietly, wisely, by those who are already further along the path. Every sincere aspiration you send out is like lighting a lamp in the window of your soul. Against the background of a world mostly absorbed in physical things, that light stands out very clearly. Those who watch over human progress are always looking for such lights. No one who truly prepares is ever overlooked. Each person receives according to what they have made themselves ready to receive.
Walking the path of conscious evolution. Let's gather the threads into a practical picture of your path. What does it actually look like to walk the road of conscious evolution? You begin by accepting that your life has a purpose beyond comfort and survival. You recognize that suffering, while painful, carries lessons, and that learning those lessons can end unnecessary pain. You stop identifying completely with your body and begin to treat it as your instrument. You consciously cultivate 3 powers: desire for growth, will to act, and intelligence to understand. You start cleaning up destructive desires while building a strong, steady desire for internal development and service. You train your will by keeping small promises to yourself, especially when they are inconvenient. You sharpen your mind through thoughtful reading, observation of life, and imaginative exercises. You add a simple, regular practice of meditation to focus your mind and build desired qualities into your character. As you live this way, changes begin to appear. Your brain feels clearer, your thinking becomes more precise and far-seeing. Your emotions become less chaotic and more under your guidance.
The people around you feel more at ease in your presence. Your influence grows, not because you try to dominate, but because you are becoming stable, understanding, and trustworthy. Old desires and amusements that once ruled you start to lose their appeal. New, nobler interests take their place naturally. You feel, perhaps for the first time, that your life is moving in a meaningful direction, even if progress is sometimes slow. There is no fixed ceiling for this growth. The greatest minds and hearts in history are only examples of what the human soul can become when its deeper powers are fully unfolded. They did not become what they are by simply absorbing information from outside. They developed the soul from within until it could pour through the brain as genius, compassion, and insight.
Rising on the stepping stones of your former self. As you continue this work over years, and indeed over lifetimes, you will look back at earlier versions of yourself with understanding. You will see how each stage, even the most painful, was a necessary step toward greater clarity. You will discover a profound paradox. Obeying the laws of life was never slavery, it was the road to real freedom. By aligning with those laws, of cause and effect, of growth, of unity, you gain the power to move wisely within them. You rise, in a sense, on the stepping stones of your former selves. Each outdated attitude you leave behind becomes a foundation for a higher one. The selfishness you outgrow becomes a stone beneath your growing compassion. The ignorance you replace with understanding becomes a step beneath your wisdom. The fears you face and transcend become supports for your courage. Gradually, you become a new person. The old impulses and cravings fade, not because you forcibly strangled them, but because you have simply grown beyond them. A deep inner peace begins to spread through your life. Not a dead stillness, but a living, radiant calm that can endure storms without breaking. Life, which once felt like a trap of random suffering, now reveals itself as a meaningful journey. With spiritual power awakening and your being more in harmony with the laws of the universe, you discover that life, in its essence, is joy.
Final encouragement and subscription reminder. You are not a fixed, helpless creature. You are a being in the process, growing, learning, unfolding. Within you lie powers of understanding, love, and creativity that you have only begun to touch. By consciously developing your desire, will, and intelligence, by using attention, imagination, and meditation to rebuild your inner world, by respecting the laws of life instead of fighting them blindly, by refusing dangerous shortcuts and opening yourself to quiet, genuine guidance, you put yourself on the path to real power. Not the power to dominate, but the power to serve, to understand, and to live in deep peace. If this journey speaks to you, subscribe to the channel to receive all the latest updates. We'll continue exploring, step by step, how to apply these principles in your daily relationships, work, habits, and decisions, so that your spiritual growth is not just an idea, but a living reality. Your path of conscious evolution can begin more deeply today, and every sincere step you take will sooner or later bear fruit.